What's happening, gang? It's your boy Retro back again with another reaction video. Yeah. Today we got another huge update. I know you guys can probably already tell it is going down. Just by that title alone, you're definitely going to want to see this one, folks. We're witnessing JD Vance is back at it again, guys. He is simply not that guy. And what I mean by not that guy, he is not that guy to be messed around with. You cannot gaslight or try to spin a narrative on him because he's always going to come with the facts to back up his claims. I mean, come on, you guys. The way he's been destroying, tearing apart these reporters, you'd have thought they know him by now, but they simply don't, guys. I'm excited to get this to us update. See another reporter trying to gaslight JD Vance. I'm absolutely destroying that narrative. We'll hop straight into it, guys. Make sure you guys hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Before we get into it, y'all, hit that like button, also hit that subscribe button for your boy. Without further ado, let's jump straight into it, y'all. Check this one out.
Let's move on because you talked about the threat from China. So this week we learned that China was behind a broad hacking campaign targeting the phones of both presidential campaigns, highlighting the threat that China poses to this country. And yet Donald Trump recently called his domestic political opponents, quote, the enemy from within, and said they are more dangerous than Russia and China. Do you believe that people like Adam Schiff and Nancy Pelosi are more dangerous than Russia and China?
Well, I think what Donald Trump said is that those folks pose a greater threat to United States' peace and security because America is strong enough to stand up to any foreign adversary.
Do you agree with him? They pose a larger threat to the United States than Russia and China?
What he said, and I do agree with this, what he said is that the biggest threat we have in our country, it's not a foreign adversary because we can handle these guys. We can handle foreign conflicts. We can't handle, look, under Nancy Pelosi's long life in public leadership, the United States has gone from the preeminent industrial power of the world to second next to China. That fundamentally belongs on Nancy Pelosi's shoulders. And if we're going to have a more prosperous country, we've got to recognize our own leadership is why we lost our industrial base to China. Our own leadership is failing to lead this country into peace and prosperity. And of course, Kamala Harris, look, when I look at the biggest threats to America, Kristen, I think the fact that people can't afford groceries, the fact that we can't meet our recruitment goals in the military, the fact that Americans have a wide open southern border, that's a way bigger threat than any foreign threat. And yes, it's caused by broken leadership.
And yet, Senator.
Oh my goodness. You hear Kristen and Welker. She is trying to interject, stop JD Vance because he's absolutely laying out all of the truth. All of the truth is right there. Kristen Welker trying to spin a narrative to say that Donald Trump said this. Do you really believe what Donald Trump said? You know, saying that Nancy Pelosi, Adam Schiff, are more of a threat to our democracy than China and all those foreign adversaries. But honestly, that's not what he said. He's saying, you know, these folks at home, we have defense systems against those foreign adversaries, those outside of our country, but those within, we have to start making a plan. We have to do something about these folks who are trying to tear us apart from the inside. Come on now, y'all. JD Vance laying it out there. What's really the problem?
Threats to America, Kristen. I think the fact that people can't afford groceries, the fact that we can't meet our recruitment goals in the military, the fact that Americans have a wide open southern border, that's a way bigger threat than any foreign threat. And yes, it's caused by broken leadership.
And yet, Senators, you know, inflation is coming down. Let me ask you about some of what we've heard here.
25% higher, Kristen, than it was when Donald Trump left the Oval Office. Do Americans, and this is an important issue, if Americans feel like inflation is a solved problem, then maybe they should vote for Kamala Harris. If you feel like the price of groceries, if you feel like the price of housing is too high, if you feel like inflation is not over, then Donald Trump is your man.
Right. There's no doubt folks believe that groceries are too high. Just making the point that inflation has come down.
I agree with those
folks. Let me ask you about some of.
So JD Vance doing it once again. Kristen Welker trying to throw it out there like, hey, JD Vance, all of what you said means nothing. Inflation is coming down. The leadership, it's solid. You know, Kamala Harris, Joe Biden got it under control. Once again, trying to tell Americans how they feel in their life. Like inflation is supposedly coming down, so we should be, you know, feeling that at home, and that's not how we feel.
Believe that groceries are too high. Just making the point that inflation has come down.
I agree with those
Let me
folks.
ask you about some of what we've heard here in the U.S. this week. Donald Trump's longest-serving chief of staff, General John Kelly, said Donald Trump is a fascist. He echoed comments made by the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Mark Milley, who also called him a fascist. When two four-star generals who worked so closely with Donald Trump call him a fascist, why shouldn't voters believe them, Senator?
Well, I think that Mark Milley and John Kelly are both disgruntled former employees, and very many of the things that they accuse Donald Trump of, people who were in the room at the time some of those comments were made, they have said explicitly Donald Trump didn't say the things that he was accused of. And look, Donald Trump was already president for 4 years. If he was what John Kelly said he was, then why did Donald Trump deliver peace and prosperity? He didn't arrest his political opponents, as Kamala Harris and her Department of Justice have in fact done.
There's no evidence of that, Senator.
Oh my good. Let this guy, JD Vance, at least get his point out and then try to fact check him on the back end, but they don't want to let you guys hear the truth. They don't want their viewership. I want to say you guys, because you guys are watching the True America First page. We're going to deliver the truth no matter what. But come on, you guys. Kristen Welker interjected every single time JD Vance get in on the truth. Like, let him get it out.
Deliver peace and prosperity. He didn't arrest his political opponents, as Kamala Harris and her Department of Justice have in fact done.
There's no evidence of that, Senator. That Kamala Harris has arrested
Justice has not been going after political opponents.
Senator, there's no evidence of that.
The current Department of Justice, under the leadership of Kamala Harris and Joe Biden, has absolutely been going after the political opponents of the current Democratic Party. I think that's a disgrace, but it's happening.
There's no evidence that the DOJ is going after their...
There's no evidence that the DOJ... Are you kidding me? All the White House visits that are on record now. We're getting Nathan Wade, Fannie Willis. We got Letitia James. We got all these folks, Jack Smith, coming after Donald Trump, and she's saying there's no evidence. We've got all the evidence stacking and piling up at this point. We're stockpiling evidence. I mean, come on, y'all. It's all there. Got an exorbitant amount.
And Joe Biden has absolutely been going after the political opponents of the current Democratic Party. I think that's a disgrace, but it's happening.
There's no evidence that the DOJ is going after their political opponents. Donald Trump was indicted by federal grand juries. Let me ask you, though, you said that they're disgruntled employees. Trump praised both Kelly and Milley. In fact, he said Kelly was, quote, one of the best people I've ever worked with. In addition to those two, Trump's national security advisors, two defense secretaries, even his vice president all say he's unfit to be president. Why should the American people hire Donald Trump when the people who worked most closely with him say that he's unfit to serve?
The people who worked most closely with him, most of them are supporting this ticket. You mentioned one person, two people, a disgruntled ex-employee, Kristen, who Donald Trump fired. He said something nice about him, and then he fired him, and now that person's attacking Donald Trump. But I think this is important because I think the American media has to be honest. Why is it, Kristen, that John Kelly doesn't like Donald Trump? It's not about personality. It's about policy. And I think the American people have the right to know that Donald Trump rejected the John Kelly, the Mark Milley consensus that America should be the policeman of the world. And because that, these folks hate him. If Donald Trump wanted to start a nuclear war with Russia, I guarantee you that John Kelly and Liz Cheney would be at the front of the line endorsing him. But I think the media misses something really important. This disagreement is not about personalities. This disagreement is because John Kelly didn't like the peace through strength policy of Donald Trump. I do, and I think the American people
serving chief of staff, and Donald Trump says he only hired.
Oh my goodness. She always has to add a little tidbit on the end to try to clear it up. But JD Vance laying out some very valid facts there where he's saying, this isn't about Donald Trump's character. It's not the reason why this guy is turned on him. It's based off the policy. He was trying to be hyper aggressive, and Donald Trump was saying we're going to, achieve strength through peace. We don't have to, fight everybody. I mean, come on, you guys. Kristen Welker, you got to give it up at this point. I don't even want to hear it.
Trump, I do, and I think the American people. He was the longest
serving chief of staff, and Donald Trump says he only hires the best people. I got to keep moving, though, because our time is very limited.
I gotta keep moving. So as soon as JD Vance lays out a valid point, she has to keep it moving. I mean, this is a very similar trend with these left-wing media outlets.
Trump says he only hires the best people. I got to keep moving, though, because our time is very limited. Former Vice President Mike Pence said, quote, President Trump asked me to put him over my oath to the Constitution. Anyone who puts himself over the Constitution should never be president of the United States. Will your loyalty, Senator, be to the Constitution or to Donald Trump?
Well, of course, my loyalty is to the American people and to the United States Constitution. But I think the best way to accomplish that loyalty, Kristen, is to get back to a president who delivered the fastest rising take-home pay in a generation, 1.5% inflation, and a secure southern border. I don't think there's inconsistency between loyalty to the Constitution and support for Donald Trump. That's why I'm out there trying to persuade my fellow Americans that Donald Trump's presidency worked for them, and I'd like us to get back back to those smart
Just
policies.
to put a very fine point on this, Mike Pence says Trump asked him to put Trump over the Constitution. If you find yourself in a similar position one day, will your loyalty be to the Constitution or to Donald J. Trump?
I just said my loyalty, Kristen, is to the Constitution of the
Over
United
Donald
States.
Trump?
But have we talked at all about the unaffordable costs of groceries? Have we talked about the fact that because I brought it up, but young Americans can't afford a home? You didn't bring that up. I brought that up. It's so interesting, Kristen, because I think that Kamala Harris's campaign, and unfortunately, too many of her media allies are more interested in what Donald Trump has said than what Donald Trump did in office. You're more interested in what Kamala Harris is accusing Donald Trump of than what Donald Trump actually did during his 4 years in office, which is deliver peace and prosperity.
We're getting a hard wrap. So on the economy, quickly before I let you go, Donald Trump on Friday again floated the idea of getting rid of the federal income tax. Just to be clear, are you proposing eliminating all federal income taxes in a Trump-Vance administration?
Well, Donald Trump didn't propose that. He set that as an aspirational goal.
Is that something you would back,
and what
getting
he
rid
said,
of all federal income taxes?
Well, I'm backing Donald Trump for president, and he set an aspirational goal and said, look, in this country for a long time, we funded the federal government primarily through tariffs. In other words, primarily through penalizing foreign corporations and foreign countries from taking advantage of our domestic markets. That's an aspirational goal. What is very real about what Donald Trump has actually proposed to specific policy proposals is that we want to eliminate taxes on tips. We want to eliminate taxes on overtime pay. That's the Donald Trump policy proposal. He's talking aspirationally about something that he himself thinks is less of a focus than cutting taxes on tips.
Getting a hard wrap, so just yes or no. Is getting rid of all federal income taxes on the table? It's a possibility under a Trump-Vance administration.
Is it on the table with the Democratic Congress that we have? I don't think that's realistic, Kristen, but I do think it's good to set an aspiration of what you want the country to look like.
So you don't rule it
and
out.
right now we're working on cutting taxes on tips, cutting taxes on overtime.
Okay, so you're not ruling it out. Senator J.D. Vance.
Thanks, Kristen.
Thank you very much for your time. Appreciate it.
Likewise.
Yo, there we have it, guys. I'm not sure when they will learn. JD Vance is simply not that guy. Not that guy to be messed around with. Host Kristen Welker, NBC, knows it now. I think this is the second time that JD Vance has had to hold her accountable, guys, trying to spin his narrative. Once again, JD Vance holding strong, stand firm in his positions, being able to defend not only his stances, but also Donald Trump. I mean, and that's what a running mate, a vice president is supposed to do, you know, be able to back up and support their running mate. And I feel like JD Vance just does that so brilliantly, and he does it in the smoothest manner. You know, JD Vance never comes undone, doesn't get his feathers ruffled. This guy just simply stays so poised, so composed, and just lays down the facts. Guys, definitely hop in the comment section. Let me know your thoughts. Also, make sure you guys hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. If you'd enjoy more content like this, catch you guys on the next one week.